A warfighter is anyone that ever stood behind or in front of a gun to protect America.
Hey, close your mouth, I got something to say. Our country should be crying because a warfighter died today. I'm a warfighter.
I'll never look back, I'll never give up, I'm doing my job.
I'm a warfighter.
I can't quit, I'ma keep fighting till I die.
I'm a warfighter.
I won't back down, ain't no way I can turn back now.
I'm a warfighter.
Battle tested, I'm ready, scream out loud, yeah, and tell me who with me.
This is Lars Larson on Fox News Radio, and right now you're listening to Tipping Point with author warfighter Boone Cutler and our own Eddie Floyd on 99.1 FM Talk.
Thank you for that, Lars Larson. Also heard, like he said, right here on our flagship 99.1 FM Talk Fox News Radio. Yes, this is Tipping Point that's heard not only here in the great state of Nevada on several stations besides 99.1 FM Talk, but also coast to coast and border to border with your host and my friend, Boone Cutler.
Here we go again, Eddie. You know what? I can't help but notice, but every time I walk in the studio, you're just trimming down every day. What is it? Push-ups, set-ups? Are you doing curves? What's the deal, brother?
All the above, brother. All the above. Ever since I started doing the show with you, I figured I better be in shape when these people come after us.
Battle ready 24/7. That's Eddie.
Hey, listen, we're ready for a power-packed show today because, you know, I've got to share this with the listeners here in the audience at 1301 Cordone. By the way, listeners, we do tape this show in front of a live audience week after week. For information, go to nevadamatters.us. We'll either be at 1301 Cordone or now our new offices studio at Reno Town Mall. Boone, I have seen you now for months and months and months if we've done Tipping Point, but never have I seen you this excited about a guest.
Brother, let me tell you something. The things we got going on right now that are coming to fruition in our country that are so very important, not just for the survival of our country, but the survival of our warfighters. Today's guest, Michael Weiss. Mike Weiss has, you call him Mike, he's a laid-back kind of a guy, but he's very serious about our warfighter issues, has a very unique experience to be able to discuss the topic of what's happening, this tidal wave that we've got coming. Let me just orient the audience to what I'm talking about. We've been talking lately about what's happening with our warfighters and what's the next step, what's coming down the pike. And one of the things that's coming down the pike is not just the tipping point regarding how warfighters are being set up to save this country with what they're doing in the arts, what they're doing in politics, what they're doing in leadership, but also how we're going to get help, because the situation in front of us is this. In the next 2 years, our wars are pretty much going to be non-existent for our warfighters because of the drawdown. The military is going to draw down again internally and put 200,000 warfighters on the street.
Wow.
That's 200,000 warfighters who, in many times, deal with their PTSD by redeploying to war. We've talked about this before.
Absolutely.
And so these warfighters are coming home. They can't redeploy to deal with their PTSD. They can't find jobs because there's no jobs, and the VA healthcare system does not have enough clinicians and people to take care of our war fighters. So what's going to happen? I see a tidal wave coming. I see something that I saw the other day. Mike Weiss, he was commenting on my Facebook page. I put a lot of stuff on there. People comment on it. He put out something that I thought was fantastic. He said what he sees is one word: clash.
Wow.
Social clash. The reason Mike can talk about that so perfectly is not only was he once a federal agent, he was also a Los Angeles police officer, and he's also a former paratrooper. So he has worked for the state. He's worked for a municipal city with a large law enforcement contingent, and he's also worked in the military.
And he fits every part of the definition of warfighter to Boone Cutler.
That is right. He has been one of the guys that has volunteered to stand behind and in front of a gun to protect the United States of America, our Constitution, and its people. And we've got Mike on the show today, and we're going to talk about this 200,000 clash.
Wow. Mike Weiss, for the listeners here in the audience at 1301 Cordone, as well as Fox News Radio, if you would be kind enough, personalize this show and talk a little bit about Mike Weiss before we get into the topics. We'd like you to tell us where you're from and where you served. And before we even go there, thank you, my dear friend.
Hello to Boone and Eddie, and I can't thank you enough for having me on the show. I mean, it's certainly an important topic, and not only am I honored to be on with two fine men such as yourselves, but to be able to discuss something that is certainly is big, if not bigger, than discussed in the past. I know Boone and I talk about it on a regular basis. A little bit about me. I did 3 years as a Army paratrooper. Those were non-combat years. Of course, I was way back during the Cold War. And after that, I got into the Los Angeles Police Department. I'm a retired Los Angeles police officer where I specialized in, back in those days, we had crash units that worked South Central Los Angeles in the projects and Watts, and was doing the gang thing in the 80s when people were killing each other for wearing the wrong colors.
Wow.
Left that. I became a federal agent with an inspector general out here in the East Coast in Washington, D.C., doing white-collar investigation for the most part, and ultimately took over their firearms and tactics unit, and that pretty much brings me up to where I'm at now. And in the interim, of course, I've tried to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on with our veterans, because that's where my true love and my true respect lie, with the warfighters of this country. I mean, that's something very close to my heart.
Well, I got to share with you before Boone jumps in, and that is thank you for your service to this great nation of ours. Thank you for what you did at a time when, I'll tell you what, you had to be one brave son of a gun to face the blues and the reds right there in Los Angeles County. And so, again, thank you for being every part of the definition of warfighter.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, brother, let's get down and dirty here. We've talked about this, and you've seen open posts on Facebook about what's happening, and you describe it as a potential, I call it a tidal wave, and you say the word clash. Tell me about what we're looking at. Who's going to clash, why, and how do we get in front of this thing? What are the elements? Let's just put it that way, because it's not really bad people doing bad things. They're just simply elements of this clash. What are the elements of the clash you describe?
Actually, there's a history of it that we can draw post-World War II, when we had a bunch of heroic warfighters that came back, and for many, many reasons that I'm certainly not qualified to go into. I'm not a psychiatrist or a sociologist, but for whatever reason decided to go down a road that ultimately led them to clashes with law enforcement and with society in general. And of course, I'm speaking of the Hells Angels, groups like that. And now we fast forward the tape into the current time. You can rest assured that, as we've discussed, you've got people that have been rolling around for years and years and multiple deployments under condition red 24/7, who are going to be stepping out of that combat zone and into a different location on the planet. But that's just their geographic location. Their minds are not going to decompress just because somebody tells them that the war is over. That was a long answer to a short question. I apologize.
No, don't sweat it about that. Let's just recap a little bit and slow it down for the audience, since they don't have a lot of the background you do. Mike is referring to post-World War II. The Hells Angels group is said to have started from a bunch of fighter pilots or bomber pilots from World War II. They came home and they were seeking the same thing that a lot of warfighters are seeking. That's the cohesion, that's the brotherhood, that's the understanding that everyone will be loyal to each other as part of a group. And they didn't find that in the civilian community, so they created their own community, and that community at that time became the Hells Angels. These things have been happening for a long, long time. It's nothing different now. The difference, though, that we're having is that we are in a more oppressed social and economic situation. These warfighters aren't going to have jobs, and so they will congregate with each other. Some will do good, some will not do good. But what's going to happen when there is that clash with our warfighters and try and get ahead of the situation so it doesn't turn from a motorcycle club to a gang?
There you go. Listeners, this is Tipping Point with your host, my friend, and your friend, author warfighter, Boone Cutler, as we interview Mike Weiss, and we shall be right back.
Than me being punished for doing anything to survive. Now that's a war crime. Y'all not taking care of your own. You people turning your backs on the ones who fought. Now that's a war crime. They train me to kill, yeah, they call me to...
This is Boone Cutler, author, warfighter, and host of Tipping Point. I want to talk to you for a minute, just 1 minute, and take the time to listen to what I'm saying. The American warfighter today commits suicide at a rate of 18 per day. That's 1 every 80 minutes. By the time you finish eating dinner this evening, a warfighter will have committed suicide. This is a tragedy. We're losing the greatest of this generation every day at an alarming rate. Currently on active duty, a warfighter commits suicide 1 every 36 hours. But there are ways to help, and you should help. You should help right now by contacting gallantview.org and find out how you can contribute and help stop, even eliminate, the warfighter suicide rate. This is a tragedy, and you can help right now by contacting gallantview.org. Do it now. Make it happen. All the way.
Warfighters, anyone that ever stood behind or in in front of a gun to protect.
Thanks to Nevada Matters veteran shows, if you would like to sponsor a veteran for $100, they will receive a mouse, monitor, computer, keyboard, plus any and all training to help veterans to re-enter the workplace and society. Call My Journey Home of Nevada at 775-825-8118. Again, that number is 775-825-8118.
This is Lars Larson on Fox News Radio, and right now you're listening to Tipping Point with author warfighter Boone Cutler and our own Eddie Floyd on 99.1 FM Talk.
Thanks again, Lars. Yes, also heard right here on the same flagship station that Tipping Point hails from here in northern Nevada, Reno Sparks, Lake Tahoe. Author warfighter Boone Cutler right now as we interview Mike Weiss.
Mike, hey, let's get back to the question. What I was asking before was, now that we can identify the situation as per history, how do we get in front of it from a law enforcement perspective?
Well, Boone, it's a great question. And look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Let's define what we're talking about here. The clash is nothing less than confrontation, violent confrontation with our nation's law enforcement. And having had a foot in both boots, I can tell you that the law enforcement folks in this country, that the same things that bond war fighters together in the battlefields downrange, bond law enforcement together in dark alleys and big cities at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so you've got the same types of mindsets. And when these two clash, if we don't start educating both sides, and when I say educating, I'm talking about officers that are rolling down the street at 2 o'clock in the morning, how to approach these guys that are fresh off the battlefield. And likewise, these war fighters, when they have a confrontation or a traffic stop or a pit stop. If we don't do that, we're going to start seeing a lot of suicide by cops. We're going to see all of this is predictable. We've seen it in smaller numbers in the past, but I think because of the numbers you ran down, Boone, that we're going to see them in larger numbers. And I guess hopefully our position here is to come together and figure out a way to head that off and minimize it.
Eddie, you got a question? Go for
I
it.
do. As a matter of fact, I tell you what, and once again, we do want to, if you just tuned in, listeners, we are talking with Mike Weiss right now. We're talking with someone who served as a paratrooper. He retired from Los Angeles law enforcement and also a Fed. He has booted up, Boone, in the military. He has booted up in L.A., and he has booted up as a Fed. And I tell you what, I love what he's saying, because this is something people better pay attention to right now. I see the war fighters all starting to congregate in social media as well.
Yeah, it starts out in social media. Like I've said before many times on the show, if you want to know where the warfighters are, they're on Facebook at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out how to take over the world. And that's the truth. Not just take over the world, but also defend and protect the country and take it to the next level. So we've got multiple things happening, and we are congregating, not so much in the past like they did at a local VFW around the bar and stuff like that, because honestly, I think our guys are more isolated these days. And so they can get some sort of social interaction with social media, and I think that's a very, very, very positive thing. What we want to make sure, though, is that warfighters from the battlefield and also our law enforcement brothers and sisters, we understand how to treat each other, and we understand that we do work together, and many times we are like-minded, and we can work together, and we should not be opposing each other. I'm completely against that. But like Mike says, law enforcement has to change a little bit and understand how to approach a warfighter, because like we've said before, Mike, would you agree that all law enforcement is basically predicated on a big dog, little dog mentality? And explain to us what that means.
Well, absolutely. A lot of that is misinterpreted as being ego, but the reality of that is, Boone, when a law enforcement officer shows up to a scene of crisis and things are collapsing around him, in order to stay alive and for tactical reasons that are applicable on any battlefield, he's got to take command and control of that situation. And there's only one way to do it. You know it as well as I do. You being a vet, a combat vet, you've got to be hardcore and you've got to be forceful. And there is no discussion until the situation is code 4, as we say. And that's pretty much what we're talking about here. So there's a lot of the conflict, if not most of it, is going to occur at the initial contact, whether it's a vehicle, pedestrian, because the law enforcement officer is obligated to establish his position. And conflict comes with the fact that most warfighters are of the same mindset. They're not known for being little dog on the battlefield, or they don't come home.
Okay, Mike, question from the audience, and it's Debbie in the audience wanted to know, when you said Code 4, would you define Code 4 for the listeners in the audience as well as Fox News Radio?
Yeah, absolutely. Code 4 is a law enforcement term for that indicates that everything is under control. The situation is under control, normal.
All right, one other question that I have for you as well, and this is more on a personal note, also from the audience here at 1301 Cordon. Chuck said of the L.A. law enforcement, of the federal agents that you were one, and also the military, which one was the toughest, Mike?
Well, I guess without going into a 6-hour conversation, because tough is certainly that's a tough one to answer. I guess LAPD, my LAPD days would be considered tougher, though when I was roaming the streets of South Central, I was in a lot better shape, and I was a heck of a lot younger, too. So everything's relative.
Yeah, it's a shame what age does to us after a while, isn't it, my friend?
Ain't that the truth? I have to ask my wife if I have my shoes on each day because I can't see my feet.
All right, rolling with the punches. Okay, Mike, here's what we got. You've got a situation, and we're gonna go back to that big dog, little dog, and you're speaking on behalf of law enforcement. I'll speak on behalf of a combat veteran. We understand that if we are not big dog, things go bad real quick. You have to establish dominance and be able to sort things out and make sure, the same way you call it Code 4, we want to make sure everything is calm and everything is what it appears to be, because we don't like surprises. We were talking recently about a situation I had as a young trooper. I was home on leave. It was probably 1990, and I had a buddy of mine walking around our old high school, just reminiscing. We weren't doing anything wrong, but it was probably about midnight. And we got rolled up on for a ped stop or a pedestrian stop at the school by a police officer. And a police officer who, this was 1990. There wasn't the same amount of respect between law enforcement towards our warfighters in 1990 as there is now. And this young police officer asked me for my ID. I gave him my military ID because I didn't have my driver's license. I had lost it somewhere because I was stationed overseas. And I gave him my military ID card. And he said, "This is no good to me. Where's your driver's license?" And, he's telling me how this is no good to him. At the same time, I'm on my knees on concrete with my ankles crossed and my hands behind my head, putting me in a very vulnerable situation. And by nature of his statement, he's causing me to get angry. Well, this was 1990, before a whole lot of combat experience, but it's something I remember. And here's where I see things getting kind of hinky, per se. If a warfighter has experienced that before, something like that, and by no means is all law enforcement bad. I mean, just so the audience knows, I went through the Law Enforcement Academy, I graduated Police Academy in 1997. I've got some of that background. I volunteered to train with LAPD. I've done a whole lot of stuff. I've trained INS agents before, so my familiarization with law enforcement has always been very proactive. But you get a warfighter in the same situation that doesn't understand what that police officer is doing and all of that kind of stuff, and they remember being neutralized at another time, maybe ankles crossed or proned out. That warfighter doesn't want to get proned out. If they're in a situation where maybe they just got in an argument with the wife, maybe they haven't slept in about 4 days, they're on the road, see something in the road that activates the PTSD, maybe dead animals, trash, something like that, the way the light hits things, and all of a sudden they get a little bit of a flashback, boom, they're starting to get pulled over by highway patrol, and they remember at another time, another place, how they were treated. These things just kind of snowball and cascade. It's honestly overwhelming to the senses once that adrenaline dumps. In that situation, my feeling is, honestly, nobody's at fault. But it has to be identified so it can be dealt with properly. What are your feelings on that?
Before he goes, I think now's the perfect time to take a quick break.
No, we're not going to break.
Wait, we got sponsors, Mike.
Yeah, sponsor can wait or they can get the out.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike. Answer the question.
Listen, the mere fact that Boone is recalling this and talking about it so many years later it should drive home the point of what a negative effect that one stop had. Now, you factor in the multiple deployments that our guys and girls are facing right now in terms of wars that we've been fighting. You factor in the unemployment situation. You factor in the divorce rate. You factor in all the stressors that people are rolling around our neighborhoods with, and it can take just one law enforcement contact where the officers haven't been trained. They haven't even given any thought to this. And let me say something to the law enforcement folks out there. Nobody's more pro-law enforcement than Mike Weiss. It's just not going to happen. That being said, nobody is suggesting that the combat vets get shown preferential treatment in terms of crimes committed or violations. What we're talking about is an approach. We're talking about a respectful approach that keeps you tactically safe, and we're talking about an approach that keeps our warfighters safe and sound. We do not want to have anything to do with any decision that's going to cause any harm to somebody that's protected this country from behind a gun.
You know what, brother? That you made a good point. So basically, it's a perception issue. It's not that warfighters need to get preferential treatment. It is truly there needs to be a different tactic for everybody's safety, not just safety of the populace, but also officer safety. There's a different tactic that needs to be employed for that situation.
We've talked about it before, Boone. You know, you've painted a picture of a Humvee rolling down a dark street with everybody on condition red. And if you picture, just imagine in your mind somebody coming down a civilian street in a regular civilian car, and now put yourself in the police car that's pulled up behind it, and these guys have decided to stop it. They're thinking overwhelming tactics, lights in the face, everything, loud commands. Get your hands up where I can see them. Those are things that if you're looking for the right signs, if you're looking for the haircut, the bumper sticker, just the things, the indicators that you might be dealing with a returning veteran, that you might manage your approach differently. And I'm not saying that it's, like I said, this is not designed to put you at a tactical disadvantage or to contest your authority, but a little bit of a different dialogue that we don't have time to go into now, but that's the type of training and the type of nexus that I'm envisioning, and I know you are as well. And I'll tell you, I read your book, by the way, Boone, as you know, I've read it, and I absolutely, of course, loved it. And what I found interesting about that, not to digress, but virtually 100% of your predictions in that book came true, Boone. And I'll tell you something, I wish every American would get a copy of that book and read it, because there's a lot to learn. Just about the time I think I know something, a book like yours comes along and shows me that I don't really know much of anything.
Mike, thanks for that. And for the listeners in the audience, as well as Fox News Radio, Mike Weiss is talking about Voodoo in Solder City, that was authored by the host of this show, Boone Cutler. I have a question for you as we close out this show, Mike, and that is, don't you think that on a nationwide basis there needs to be training for our law enforcement, especially in the wake of all of these warfighters coming home? Boone, I'll go to you first.
I absolutely think there's, we've talked about it before. A lot of law enforcement understands the term verbal judo. Verbal judo was a tactic that was taken up by most law enforcement, every law enforcement agency in America, to help de-escalate conflicts between during a law enforcement contact. The same type of thing can be done with our warfighters, and it's not to diminish the police officer's authority. It's to honestly establish a proper, adequate tactic for the situation. Mike, your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our nation is one that learns from past mistakes and oversights, not to diminish things that have happened in the past. But when you look at how we treat our veterans compared to, let's say, the returning vets from Vietnam, listen, we have an obligation to do this and to train both sides of the people, because we're talking about folks that have fought enemies. So, because whether you're fighting a guy on the battlefield or he's crawling through your window to do damage to your home or harm one of your loved ones, that is an enemy combatant. In my mind anyways. So we would be remiss if we didn't put together programs and train both sides, because if we can save some lives of heroes, of warfighters, both wearing blue and digital camo or whatever the garb of the day is, then that's the right thing to do, and we should do it.
Hey, Mike Weiss, we want to thank you for being author warfighter Boone Cutler's guest right here on Tipping Point, and I guarantee you we want you coming back, because as I'm sure you can tell, even though I never saw combat, I now suffer from PTSD from just being his co-host.
Mike, you done all the way, brother. Hey, listen, Mike, you done a fantastic job. Will you come back on the show sometime?
Absolutely, brother. Just give me the word. And thank you both for having me.
Not a problem, brother. All the way. Make it happen.
Out.
GruntStyle.com. That's right. It's time to give away the Grunt Style T-shirts. Go to GruntStyle.com right now. Copy and paste the beer guarantee into an email. Send that email to nevadamatters@gmail.com along with your mailing address and your shirt size, and we will send a free Grunt Style t-shirt to the first 2 people that send us an email right now. Make it happen. Gruntstyle.com. Send the email to nevadamatters@gmail.com. This is a Tipping Point exclusive. This is Road to Recovery by Warfighter Soldier Hard.
Yeah, Soldier Hard, y'all. I'm on this long road to recovery. You know what I'm saying? Welcome to my world, y'all. Yeah, rock with me. You see, I've been through it all, from fighting in wars, but I died for freedom, that's a real good cause. I said yes, cause the mother said no. There's a war going on, give me rifle, let's go. They trained me to kill, yeah, they called me the kill machine. Now I'm out, look what this war did to me. I keep fighting cause I need a change. I know deep down inside, yeah, ain't the same. I wanna be like I used to. I wanna smile, I wanna laugh, yeah, you're like I'm supposed to. But I'm someone can get close to. I walk alone by myself, don't speak, I don't know you. I just really wanna get away and keep popping Percocet pills just to take the pain away. Yeah, nobody understands me or even really care enough about me. Yeah, I'm on the road to recovery. I just wanna be all alone, don't bother me. I'm on the road to recovery. I'm on the road to recovery. Yeah, I'm on the road to recovery. I just want the pain to go away, far away from me. I'm on the road to recovery. I'm on the road to recovery. Yeah, I'm on the road to recovery. I just wanna be all alone, don't bother me. Your time is hella hard, it's slowing down my pace, and you can see all the pain written on my face. The nightmares, cold sweats, I don't wanna live. Shrink sessions, yeah, something's gotta give. I used to be emotional, now emotionless. I don't even care no more, I don't even give a I don't like to be in crowds, I stay away from all. I'm safe by myself, I roll with one homie, my loaded gun on me. My mind keeps working and playing tricks on me. Every noise I hear, I'm ready, let's go. My body's here at home, my mind's still at war.